feel like we're so blessed to be here from the comfort of our homes and families, community. And we have been able to just like go through the daily life of our people in Gaza. They very generously took us throughout their days, throughout the difficult journeys, and I can't imagine what it is like to be in that situation. And we're really lucky, we're very privileged to be here. So I was thinking about that, and when Sheila asked me to talk today, I thought, what is there to talk about after we've seen all of this, after we've seen all the stories, and we listened to children, to people from different backgrounds, to artists, to just like ordinary people. That's why I thought maybe this minute of silence is like a minute to reflect, to take away. And it is something that we do in events in Palestine. We start many events by praying to our martyrs, by having a minute of silence to remember all of those who lost their lives, our prisoners, our people who are wounded. So I wanted just to also maybe for us to feel, or to feel that all these films were put together and were filmed and were really beautifully produced for us. Many of the films resonated with me, and I think these films remind us of the general story of Palestine, which is a genocide that started over 77 years ago with the Nakba, with the ethnic cleansing of Palestinians. And the difference between that time and now is that we get to see it as it happens, and we see it in the news, we see it on our phones, and we see it through these films. And I have to say, from also my experience and my profession in arts and curation, that there is no image that can be produced in the time of genocide, and the art cannot produce any image that is close by 10% or 1% even to the reality of the genocide. This just reminds us of, since the Nakba and until now, we're having this slow slaughtering of our people, and it intensified in the last 2 years. So a few of the films that maybe resonated with me, all of them were amazing, all of them were beautiful, all of them just being able to go with the teacher. The teacher in the film reminded me a lot of my teachers and our fathers in Palestine. It is very typical behavior of our dads to be I have everything when they have nothing. Just to offer their to offer what they can to their students, to their family, and not to complain about a single thing. So that was one of the films that really resonated with me. I think also, if we think about all the films, we see that there were two sounds that were very clear. The sound of the drone in most of the films that we see, but also the sound of the human. And the films, they really try to kind of empower the sound of the human, which is not really shown in media in the West or around the world. It's shut down, the Palestinian voice, the human voice. And yeah, we saw that that sound of the human in for example, Taxi Wanisa, the driver with the donkey Wanisa, and how the filmmaker appeared the director appeared at the end. And the reason why I mentioned this film, it's because for me it's really powerful. It is a film that shows us that yes, these are beautiful films are made that were made during the genocide, but it's also made by people who are human, and we're not superhuman. And talking about our pain is not easy, and producing films about our pain is not easy. And historically, if you read about the Nakba, a lot of the survivors of the Nakba, the ethnic cleansing of Palestinians in 1948, were not able to talk about that. And I think it is very powerful and it is very generous of all the people who were there. It was very generous of them to share their stories that they haven't even really processed. All the pain, all the difficulties they've been going through. And it is also a reminder of us, for us, that the personal, the day-to-day, what we do is political, because a lot of the time our cause is depoliticized, our existence is dehumanized. As Palestinians, we're like one of the ladies said in the films, we're reduced to numbers. And I think just to remind us that making a film that is very simple but very human is a political message. And even like if you look up online the film, there are articles online about it that try to say, oh, this is not a political film, or this is not this or that, and just reducing it to something which is not. And I think it's always important to remember that the personal is political, and attempts to depoliticize the Palestinian cause are not gonna go through, and that's why we're here, and that's why we keep doing what we're doing. Historically, if you read about the Nakba, a lot of the survivors of the Nakba, the ethnic cleansing of Palestinians in 1948, were not able to talk about that. And I think it is very powerful and it is very generous of all the people who were there. It was very generous of them to share their stories that they haven't even really processed. All the pain, all the difficulties they've been going through. And it is also a reminder of us, for us, that the personal, the day-to-day, what we do is political, because a lot of the time our cause is depoliticized, our existence is dehumanized. As Palestinians, we're like one of the ladies said in the films, we're reduced to numbers. And I think just to remind us that making a film that is very simple but very human is a political message. And even like if you look up online the film, there are articles online about it that try to say, oh, this is not a political film, or this is not this or that, and just reducing it to something which is not. And I think it's always important to remember that the person who is political and attempts to depoliticize the Palestinian cause are not gonna go through, and that's why we're here, and that's why we keep doing what we're doing. To comment on these films, I found it difficult. This is the second time that I've seen this film, and I think the best way to describe it is to use the words of the late Palestinian prisoner Walid Daqqa. Walid Daqqa was in Israeli jails for 38 years, and he recently passed of cancer, and his body is still held by the Israeli prison authorities alongside over 700 bodies. And he was someone he was very productive even in jail, and he believed that if they imprison your body, if the enemy imprisons your body, they cannot imprison your soul, they cannot imprison your creativity and your mind. And in one of the interviews that he gave when he was in jail, he gave an interview to a Lebanese newspaper, and for him these acts of having his voice out was an act of freeing one small part of him. And he said, this is to describe the film, he said, if we lose our ability to share joy and grief with people, we lose our ability to stand in solidarity with them. And I think this is a great message that we take away from these films. How do we stand in solidarity? There are several things to do. I'm sure many of us in the room are already involved. The first thing is to boycott all Zionist products and to boycott any companies, international companies that are involved in apartheid, in settlement building in the West Bank, and any genocidal activity. So please keep doing that. If you're also interested in film and art, boycott. There's a cultural boycott. So join the call for the cultural boycott. Do not go to films that are supported by Zionist entities. One of the big institutions that support arts is Bloomsburg Philanthropies. They fund a lot of cultural events, and they fund the building of settlements in the West Bank and the confiscation of land, of Palestinian land. So please boycott them, boycott their events. Please keep, writing to your MPs. Please keep doing all the community events that you do, like keep talking about Palestine and listening to Palestinians. I think to always remember that we have the power and we have our presence, your presence on the streets have led to, even though we're slow, but we're consistent with this change, with our politicians and the decision makers in this country, which is really involved in the massacre in Palestine, in the day-to-day suffering of Palestinians in the West Bank, the prisoners, the refugees who cannot go home, who cannot go back to their villages and to the towns of origin. So yeah, please boycott products, boycott cultural events that support Israeli apartheid, boycott health institutions. In the film we've seen all these children who are collecting water and looking after their siblings and doing things that children are not usually doing. So, but also being like, understanding how to lose one's life and what it means to lose family members and to be close to these very difficult experiences. So yeah, I mean, for these children, please, keep doing what you're doing, keep educating, keep talking, and especially now, because the world after the so-called peace summit and peace deal or whatever, like fake peace it is, they want us to not to talk about Palestine anymore. They want us not to go on the streets. They want us not to do anything, not to show our films, not to tell our stories. And as if like we can turn back to this moment before and go back to the slow genocide of Palestinians. So yeah, I will end here.